Having just completed turn 2 of Narvik, I just wanted to go over what had been happening. We're looking from the east here, so the north is this way. Here is the bottom of Denmark, of Norway, and the top of Denmark here, which is under German control. And this swathe around here is all Sweden. There's the boundary of Norway, that black line. Essentially, these green cubes indicate all important airfields. There's one here, it's blue, in the control of Germany. Then there's two on either side of Oslo. There's one here, there's one here, there's one here. There's another one here at Trondheim, and then there's one more up the top here. This is Narvik, and there's an airfield here in the vicinity of Narvik as being the topmost point of Norway. So essentially what happened on turn 1 was that 6 mountain battalions were sent in by sea, and 6 infantry battalions, and then 1 mountain brigade. The 6 infantry battalions landed here, here, and here. There was an opposed landing here, and there was a loss of a unit. And I think the ensuing fight. Then 3 mountain battalions were sent in to Trondheim here. The enemy retreated before combat. There's a first turn rule which says that most 2/3 of the time the Norwegians must retreat before combat. Normally let you roll the die, it's on a 1 or a 2. They have the option to do so. And we lost one of the units in transit there to Allied shipping and air cover. And then 3 mountain battalions and 1 mountain brigade were sent in there. We lost one of those mountain battalions in transit. The brigade was a very risky proposition because you roll for each unit. If you've broken a brigade down into 3 battalions, obviously you've got a good chance of getting at least 2, maybe all of them on. But on a 6, you would lose the whole brigade. Fortunately, that one survived. And in the second turn, let me zoom in so you get a better look at what's going on. I'll get a little bit closer. Okay, so now in their turn, the Allies interdicted Narvik, so no more units could be brought in, and they also provided anti-aircraft cover from Navy units for the neighbouring Elversgard Summer town. The Germans in fact moved up here into the mountains, and on the second turn they've moved around here to place themselves next to the airport because they desperately need an airfield. The airfield's in that hex. This is just marks the vicinity of it. In the first turn we got some newly mobilised Norwegian troops. In the second turn they moved forwards. Second turns they've moved forwards to help defend here. The Norwegians are slightly hampered in that their headquarters do not reduce stacking so much as the Germans are. That obviously the Germans have a more, I guess they're modelled as having a more efficient organisation, but there's no headquarters there at the moment for the 3rd Mountain Division units there, so they're having to. There's a maximum of 2 per hex, and until they get that airfield, it's very, very doubtful if they're going to get any reinforcements. They have a supply which is 1 supply unit here in Sweden, which started out there, and then it's moved around here to accompany these. So you spend that supply if you perform combat. Otherwise, you can just stay in supply without combat. So they need an extra supply, which can be dropped by air. But again, that's a long way up. So the next important point is here in Trondheim. This was a bit of a success. Although they lost one brigade coming in, they managed to capture an ammunition dump and also a truck unit. Oh no, they didn't lose a brigade. No, that's right. Yeah, they didn't lose a brigade. So all three of their brigades came in. They took possession of Trondheim quite handily with two supplies. They used one of those supplies on the second turn to fight a Norwegian unit there. Unfortunately, were unsuccessful, and they've retreated into the mountains there. Because mountain units get bonuses in the mountains, there's only one Norwegian mountain unit against two that are left there. So they're kind of sitting pretty, but again, they need the airfield, which is in this hex, to bring in more reinforcements, because supply by sea there is way too risky. They did use their captured trucks to move one of their units down here to try and help clear this road here, because the other major effort was here down in the southwest. So on the first turn, we had those 6 units move in. They were quite successful. They managed to capture 2 supply dumps, and there's another truck unit still held there by the Norwegians. But they took out one of the air units, and then these are 2 battalions formed from the remnants of the dumped artillery. If they had been saved, these would be artillery units, but the Germans got the supplies, the personnel saved themselves. They were swiftly ordered to guard the airfields, one here and one here, because on the first turn, the Germans attempted a paratroop landing in this airfield to take it. It was turned back by the weather. Until you get an airfield in Norway, the weather, I guess that's the sea crossing, will turn back any attempted paratroop landing 2/3 of the time. So anyway, they've taken the airfields to try and prevent that second and third turn. Well, in fact, they moved in the second turn, so from the third turn. And the Norwegians, just in their second wave, they brought in all their... how many did they bring in there? They brought in 3 supply and 3 whole brigades, plus 2 armour companies around here in the second wave. And then they staged 6 headquarters unit and 1 AA unit to be brought in the second turn. So they came on in the second turn. In fact, I switched out. I made an adjustment, switched out the AA unit. I think I brought in some more artillery. So they have consolidated and moved out, but there's a fairly strong Norwegian, it's like the Royal Guard under that, with that headquarters. And the armour units, 2 armour units, managed to whiz around here, again to come out and try and claim a connection up to Trondheim. So armour units they can move in the exploitation phase, same as the trucks, so they can cover a lot of ground which the other units can't. However, the Norwegians do have these units here entrucked, and these ones here. Then the last thing to mention is what happened over here at Kristiansand is we lost 1 unit. I believe we lost one. We lost 1 unit coming in, and we're not able to take the airfield here, and so a unit has gone up into the mountains there. They're not actually mountain units, but at least they'd have some protection. But the bulk of their division is coming in now and next turn, so that will bring a strong force. We will have an airfield soon, but really we need them now as soon as possible, because in the first turn the Allies, apart from bringing in interdiction and anti-aircraft cover, they also brought in here a stack of about 5 or 6 units, some night bombers, night fighter bombers, and a fighter unit. Not hugely powerful, but they can start creating some hassle for the German air cover. Germans staged a lot of their junkers up here, and you can see they've got units waiting to be ferried over from the airfields in Denmark. And here's the float planes that they sent in supply to. They can land in ports rather than airfields. So they supplied Trondheim originally in the first turn. So things went quite well, but in the second turn, let me see if I can get a bit closer. So the Norwegians on the first turn just lost their single present air unit. In the second wave, we lost 2 artillery battalions coming in, and there's a Junkers unit which attempted. Oh yes, that was right. We attempted a daring air landing down on Christiansand here, which that never made it. So that was aborted, and that Junkers unit was destroyed. But the worst disaster was a bit foolish of me. It should have sent this in by air units, and that's what we need the airfield for, because even though it just ferried across from Denmark to one of these ports, this whole artillery battalion of the 214th Division is lost. So the 214th Division, which this belongs to and is reinforcing up here, now has no artillery. I say that. Yeah, so it's got no artillery at all. I forgot to remove that one. So that's a bit of a disaster. But c'est la vie, that's how it goes. And so, I've knocked my victory. I have to recount them, but anyway, it's something like 26 victory points so far because of the losses and some interdiction by the Allies in those first 2 turns. Okay, I just found a rule which I hadn't noticed before, which is that any Allied air unit that is destroyed is automatically replaced the next turn back at Bomber Command. Okay, so not at Hatton Field, but at Bomber Command. So they're further away, but they do automatically come back. And I also realised I hadn't actually played. I played the second turn German part, but not the Norwegian part. So I have that to do now. So we'll be essentially what that means is that all the Allied air units can be kind of wasted, used riskily. They will come back, but delayed. Well, I'll have to see how that goes, but it means I don't have to be as conservative with them as I thought I had to be, because they are weaker in factors, combat factors, bombing factors, so forth, than the German ones. But they are quite expendable. Correction, it's the Allied Bomber Command units, Bomber Command, so there's only 4 which can always be replaced. They're further down here in the sort of southeast of England. The other units are stationed here at Halston Field. Some have staged here. So those are coming in this turn, as well as some swords and Blenheims, and actually some British combat infantry troops. When we look at these Bomber Command units, it's 18 hexes to there, and then all the way to Oslo Northfield there, it's 48. So they could land there by doubling their factor, so they don't have to return home. So only 2 of them will be able to do that. These 2 won't be able to get that far. They can just about get to Christiansand airfield here. So if that airfield's not held, these units will not be able to stage into Norway. They'd only be able to intercept any German units, any German air units around here, perhaps attacking aircraft carriers. So they could be used for cap. In fact, yes, I've forgotten, I do get an aircraft carrier, the Furious, this turn, so I'll have to see how that works out. So the end result of turn 2 is we got the Furious coming in here with 3 Swordfish squadrons disrupting this heavy mountain regiment. I've been calling them brigades, but they're regiments. These are actually German troops which came in the destroyers. I forgot to add them in. As an allied division, or at least the headquarters and the 2 or 3 units of its division have landed there. Similar, they've landed an anti-aircraft unit there. And these units managed to... Did they cause a disruption? Yes, they caused a disruption, and then in the combat there's this a truck and a mountain unit were destroyed, but it was an exchange, so the Norwegians lost some as well. And the British have brought in some units down here in Kristiansand. So they brought in a small unit there. So having reinforcements here and here and here, combat going on here. This one's looking well because the Norwegians have sort of got the control of those passes there. But these are still surrounded. Now, I hadn't put these marks on before, but these go on the mobilisation centres. So by a bit of randomisation, you can you can see the chances of it. There's 16 mobilisation centres and there's 16 Norwegian divisions, and between 1 and 7, 2 and 7 of them will mobilise in any one turn. And there's a bit of a randomisation depending on the turn. But if those places are controlled by the Germans capture those units, they're counted as destroyed. So we had some reinforced mobilisation there, and they're holding on here because there's quite a few mobilisation centres around there, plus those 2 airfields. The Germans have got units waiting, they've got lots more, there's got more units coming staging, but they've still got loads of units they haven't brought on. They would have been bringing those on at the rate of sort of 3, 6, maybe 9 a turn, depending on the size of the unit. Had they an airfield, they still don't have an airfield. We're about to enter the 3rd turn. So that is the prime objective for the Germans now, to get 1 and or 2 of these airfields. And also to try and hold on in Narvik to work out how to do that. The disruption will go at the end of the next turn, but during that time they defend at half strength and they can't attack, so they're going to have to withdraw a bit there. They're going to get in danger of being cut off, surrounded, and then whittled down. So the Germans need an airbase, A, to bring on reinforcements quicker than they can via sea, and also to stage reinforcements up here to Narvik, and possibly here, because those ones are going to get beleaguered quite soon. They're sitting pretty here, but you know, Norway is a difficult country to get through. And I just want to mention one thing, because I didn't go into the map before. We have certain regions like here, you see there's this is glacial area. Otherwise we have forests, wooded areas, there's some marsh, and then of course there's a mountainous area which is slow moving except for the mountain troops and no movement at all from motorised. So for example, the Norwegians are piling up truck units here, but there's no way to get at the moment those truck units over to here or to here where they could be useful. Well, in fact they could zip round there, but it's the German turn, so we'll see if the Germans close that off. You can see you can quite effectively close off portions of the countryside if the Germans take all here. It's going to be very difficult to communicate between here and here, The Norwegians and Allied units have no transport planes. What they do have is a limited ability. Norwegians can hop one unit from port to port. So, for example, from there to the next port, which I think's around here. And then the Allies get a landing craft at one point, which can then move units by sea. But so the Germans, once they get their airfield, they'll have more mobility. Generally, I think from position, and they'll be able to cut Norway in half that way. For example, their paratroops and so forth like that. But the Allies, they'll have that limited sea reinforcement ability. It's going to be interesting. And I want to see how it pans out.